Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Nice to see everyone back. Can you believe it's another month? We're just going to give it just 2 minutes, just if people are needing to join, and then just give it a few minutes and then we'll start. We had about 30 registered, but we'll see who can make it. Just going to give it 1 more minute, Karin, and then we can start.
Okay.
Then they can just join as they come on.
They automatically get in as they come on, Trace?
No, normally
Or do you have to allow access?
I'll let them in, yeah.
Okay. While we're waiting, Sherwin, what field are you in, or what area are you in?
Tracy, I'm in Cape Town.
Yes.
And
What do you?
In the coding and labeling industry.
Labeling industry. And you, Henriette?
Hello, hi.
Hi.
I work on a wine farm.
Henriette's
nice.
my friend. Yeah, Henriette's my friend. Hey, Henriette.
How are you doing? How was
Well,
your visit in China?
Oh, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I keep meaning to send you a mail and say, oh, it was absolutely amazing. Didn't see any speed wines, but oh, it was amazing.
Okay, but we will still catch up.
We will definitely. I mean, when I'm in Cape Town, I'm going to have to come and have a coffee with you.
Absolutely. I'm inviting you on screen. I've got witnesses now.
Yes. And I would say go to the wine farm for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's so lovely.
Let's see. Marilies is here as well. Marilies, what field are you in?
Hi guys, sales.
And what do you sell?
I'm with Bidvestiner.
Right. Okay.
This is one of
great.
our wines that are here every week, here. Every month, not every week, every month.
Yeah. The Bidvest guys, yeah, I remember.
No, Steiner. The Steiner. Not Bidvest, Steiner.
Steiner.
Okay, I think, Karin, we're going to get going. And then if we've got time, you can. I just thank you guys for joining us. Jean is training today. So he's got some friends out from Uganda. So he's training them today. So it's Karin and myself keeping down the fort here today. So I just want to welcome you today. Some of you have met Karin before. She did a session for us before. So she's one of our facilitators. She's a coach. She's got quite a few different coaching types of life coaching and business coaching and all sorts of coaching. But she loves and it's a whole thing of just uplifting people. And I I've known Karin for a while now, and that is really her passion, is just uplifting people and just seeing them, just go forward and find themselves and better. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to Karin. Thanks, Karin.
Pleasure. Thanks, Trace. Right. So we kick off today with building resilience and handling rejection. And it's probably one of my favorite topics because it's a topic that I had to learn the hard way. And I'd like to share a couple of tips and strategies with you today. But I'd also like, if you have something to say, for you to use your icons at the top of the screen, raise your hand. You can stop me at any stage and ask me questions or interact with me, so that we can make this a session in which you'll really gain something from. So there's reactions as well. I love the reactions as well, little hearts and little smileys. So off we go. Right, so let me tell you a bit about me. I'm a doting mom. I've got a beautiful family, 2 gorgeous sons with one's got a fiance, the other one's got a girlfriend. I'm passionate about self-growth, as Tracy says. I've built 3 careers. I started in education and I've been in real estate. So I sold houses, and I am a coach and very passionate about that. My biggest thing is transformation. I want to know what your intention is when I coach you and what transformation you want to see. So that's the most important thing, is when you decide I want to make a change, you've got to tell me what that change is going to be. So I'd like to invite you to turn off all your distractions. Get the cell phone, put it away, turn it upside down, because it is probably the biggest theft of time. If you've got your children around, get them into that homework. I know they started school today. I'm sure they're going to have a lot to do. And then finally, emails. Your extra screen that's on, try and put it off, because ultimately in this hour, if you can honor yourself and what you're going to gain out of this, that would be first prize. So what will we cover? In an unpredictable sales environment, and it really is, with the economy standing on its head and with things really difficult in most sales environments, resilience is not a trait. In other words, you can put it on your CV and say that you are resilient, but resilience is not something that comes automatically, even with a personality type. You have got to basically have it rooted in self-leadership. Self-leadership, which is rooted in self-awareness, who you are, self-motivation, what you do things for, and recognition of your highest values. So it is a trait which, if you struggle with that resilience that you need in this really tough environment, the question is, what are you doing to develop it and to actually make yourself resilient? What are the things that you're doing on a daily basis? Now, whether you're driven by impact, recognition, or financial reward, clarity on what fuels your purpose sharpens your focus, and this sustains your momentum. So I always want to know, why are you doing what you are doing? And most people tell me it pays well. Now, my stint in real estate was a chapter in my career, in my life, and it was a very good chapter, and it paid very well, and I learned a lot in that chapter, and that is why I will never ever say it wasn't something I should have done. I'm very grateful for my sales experience. Sales confidence, though, doesn't stem from charm. Even though you've got an outgoing personality and you can read the room and you have a wonderful way with people, charm only takes you so far. It's the competence, the understanding your industry, the knowing the facts and anchoring it in your pitch in our current economic reality. I remember when I started selling houses, it was way easier than it was when I eventually left real estate. And now when I speak to agents, they tell me it is incredibly tough, because they'll write contract after contract, but they can't convert. The people are basically taking all the unknowns and saying, but what if the interest rates go up? What if this happens? What if that happens? So there are a lot more objections than there used to be when the economy was easier. Now, objections aren't walls. They're invitations to deepen conversation. And today we're going to look at that. When you get that objection, how do you react? If you respond in a way that will facilitate conversation and understanding of the person's needs and what they want, then you're going to have a better outcome than if you just react. And a lot of the time in our reactions, when we get objections, we close the door to the interaction that we have with those people. This means you've got to be prepared. You've got to know what your common objections are. You've got to basically go with authority, with empathy. And then another very important skill in self-leadership is active listening. Listening with both ears, not listening so that they can stop talking and you can talk. Literally hearing every word they say and interjecting every now and then with, I hear you. Because if you say, I hear you, then you really must hear them. You must honestly have heard what they said. It was a difficult one for me. My personality is the one where I've got the ideas. I'm enthusiastic. I'm creative. When people are talking, I'm going through the files and I've got a lot of creative energy and I just want to share it. I want to tell you about it. I want to add it onto the table. I want to add that value. And a lot of the time, I'm not thinking through what I should be doing. So balancing emotional intelligence with factual expertise so that you can transform pushback into partnership and pressure into power is what we're going to talk about today. So resilience, the definition is it's the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. Toughness, it's the remarkable resilience of so many institutions is an example we can say. We can say that this business is resilient. It has withstood a lot of the economic pressures. So it's the capacity to withstand. It's also the ability for a substance or an object to spring back into shape. So you've got that elasticity. You're agile. And in sales, that is something important that we need to ask ourselves. How agile am I? Or do I go in for the hard sell every single time? Because you see, that hard sell is sometimes what scares our clients away. So, as I said to you, we need to know what our objections are. I asked Copilot, because I know this is a general workshop. I said, what are the top 5 objections in the sales environment? And it came up with this. And generally, these are mostly used in, it doesn't matter whether you sell shoes, whether you sell houses, whether you sell cars, whether you sell insurance, whether you sell anything, nuts, sweets, water. Somebody's gonna come with an answer and say, it's too expensive. We don't have the budget. They're going to probably tell you as well, I need to think about it. In other words, they won't want to sign on the day that you visit. I'm happy with my current provider, so they might have somebody else. I need to run this by somebody else. That was a big one for me. The wife would come and look, but the husband's got the signing powers. So the wife comes and looks. When the husband comes, or the mother or the father comes, the family come, then most of the time they walked away from that house because somebody was clever and knew something more than what you had. So I always used to have my decision makers at every single interaction I had. Who is going to sign this document? Who is going to make the decision here? And do I have the decision maker in the room? Another objection, and I just took 5, there are many. Now is not a good time. You'll hear that often as well, especially when economically it's not going so well. When budgets are tight, often now is not a good time. These objections often stop us, and we often don't see them as a gift, and they are actually one of the biggest gifts that we get. because with every objection that you've got to manage, you are being asked to display what you know. In other words, and your competence as an expert. And I don't know how many of you have read the book Outliers, where they say that you've got to do your 10,000 hours. I kind of worked it back when I started selling houses, because I had no experience, nothing. I was a teacher. I came out of a training background. I ran a business where we trained teachers. So when I went into real estate, I really did not know how to sell a house. And ultimately, to make a decision to become the best real estate agent required of me to become an expert in that field. I had to also learn that the buyer that goes through once and doesn't buy isn't necessarily lost, because I need 6 points of contact before a client will even remember me. And in the time that I sold property, what I realized that my database became one of my most powerful tools. And that if I could recognize when people were coming back and what relationship I had with them, I realized that being in front of them more than once is actually what will eventually seal the deal. So objections allow you to build those relationships. And that is why I see it as a huge gift. And for me, I would, in the wine industry and in the label industry, I would want to know what my top objections are. And I would want to be prepared in terms of my expert level. Not overselling, not trying to convince, not going in hardcore, but simply understanding that it's a gift when they ask you questions. And that gift also starts getting you in control of that conversation, because the more questions that you're asking and the more questions they're asking, the more you are able to give them the knowledge that they need. And here is the thing. When you are asking questions, you are in control of the conversation. You are the one in control. The minute you are defending, you are no longer in control. So what matters? Hard training matters, because then the fight is easy. What does hard training mean? Let's have a look at a case study. Let's meet Devin. So I've called him Devin because that is not his real name, but I'm going to use an example of a client that I coached that's in the sales environment and who had all the credentials and the paperwork and really was extremely good at what he did. In terms of managing his sales team and relationship-wise had it, but he couldn't reach target. He couldn't. He couldn't reach that 100% target that they gave him. And when we sat and we started working, some of the things that he said was, it's got to do with the credit score. They've now brought in a new credit score, and the credit score is actually the problem because they're now declining people way more easier because they don't have the, they reckon that they don't have the funds. And then they came back and said they really think they must make the credit score a little bit easier because then they'll do more business, because a lot of their clients, weren't actually passing that credit score. Another thing he said was, they do. The people have a lot of objections, and they often say they have to speak to someone, exactly like I said, one of my objections. And then they say once they go away, they know they've lost that client. So I sat down with Devin and I said to Devin, and let's say Devin is in the wine industry. Let's just use it as an example because that's one that came up. I said to Devin, so how much wine gets sold in South Africa in a year? And he said to me, I don't really know. So I said, well, open a tab on your computer and let's quickly Google. Okay, just Google how much wine is sold in white wine. Let's make it white wine, is sold in South Africa annually. So we did that with his product, and he Googled it, and he told me it was, I think, 555 million worth of that product. I said to him, and how much does your company sell in a year? He had to go onto his dash on his CRM, and I said, and he looked it up, and he said to me, it was something like 57 million or something. So I said to him, so who is selling the rest? So Devin and I started talking and sharing ideas. And I said to him, there's business out there. There's a lot of business out there. There's opportunities for every single salesperson out there. Enough for everyone so that you can take your eyes off the competition. You don't have to focus on that competition because there's enough for everyone. So what are the important things here? There's also enough money to be made out there. One of the other things that came up, he said to me, it's very quiet this time of the year and not much activities happening, with their sales. And I went, so you're saying that there's certain times of the year that it's quiet. And I remember as a real estate agent, winter wasn't exactly your best time, but it wasn't a dead time. It was a time to plant those little seeds, those mustard seeds that you plant and you see nothing happening. You plant and you plant and you plant. And then suddenly in December, when you've planted and you've done leads and you've made contact with homeowners and you've been out there, suddenly you have this flourish. And I said to him, how does your financial year work? Do you know when these periods are? And then we spoke about income generating activities. And I said, so what are those in your industry? What do you physically have to do to put the bums on the seats or the people in the chairs drinking white wine? What do you have to do? So Devin and I had a wonderful conversation. And the one thing we realized was mostly in a sales environment, your money's not going to be made in the office behind your computer doing admin. Your money's not going to be made cold calling, and that'll help. It's one of the income producing activities. And yes, it's going to help. But your money is made in your farm. We used to call it a farm. It's out there. It's out there with the people. So Devin embarked on going out to where the money could be made. And the next time Devin and I met, I actually spoke to him in his car. Devin was traveling. Devin had to physically visit people, physically go and see people, physically make appointments. And the loveliest thing that he said when Devin and I spoke was, he said, my diary's full. I've taken today off to coach with you and to do a bit of admin in the office with my team that we're checking in. But most of our work now happens out in the field. So Devin learned a very valuable lesson about his industry. He learned that a lot of the time we can push paper, but we've got to recognize what it is we have to do. So let's have a look at the steps to follow, because it becomes important in terms of what you need to know. The first thing is, in most companies, unless you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or you're a person who is the sole owner of your company or director of your company, you probably have a sales team, or you have a team of people below you, above you in the organogram. You have the CEO up there and you have the workers on the ground. So from the top, the person with a vision for the company is going to have a strategic overall objective for the year. And I like to work in financial years because a financial year is 12 months. If I divide it into 4, I've got 4 quarters. So then I've got 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. And yes, maybe one of those quarters is going to be a quiet quarter. but it can't be a quiet quarter in terms of making money, because then what you are saying is, I don't need to earn anything in that quarter, or I'm happy not to earn anything in that quarter. Now, that didn't fly for me. I needed to know that the momentum was going. So, number one, I wanted to find out, when I started selling houses, what was the strategic objective? What part of it did I have to fulfill? And in exactly the same way with Devon. You see, in companies, you might be in charge of customer service. And then your job would be about how many customers or feedback forms do you have to get back, and how many times do they have to rate you. And every single job description can in some way be measured. And you've got to decide what those metrics are. So if he had to sell 7 million rands worth of product, then he would take that 7 million, take it, that's his goal for the financial year, hand it down to him by the CEO or whoever, his general manager or the next person in the upline. And then he would have to decide what he was going to do to get 7 million banked by the end of the financial year. Now, often what we do as salespeople, we use the objections to say, it's really a tough economy, people aren't using this anymore, but we don't realize that the business is being done either by us or by somebody else. The second thing is, what are the income generating activities required? In other words, your KPIs. So yes, as I said, cold calling definitely is one of them. Okay. What are the things that you physically have to do? I told you managing my database was important, because speaking to my clients at least once a month or once every 2 months, or doing a broadcast or doing a social media post where I was front of mind. I didn't want them to see other agents. I wanted them to see me. And you see, if I didn't do those things, they wouldn't know that I was still around. And you know, you're swiped past very quickly, because that's how it works. And people say to me, yes, but social media is hard work and you have to continuously do it. Yes, you do, because they swipe you down like on TikTok. And when you see again, you're gone. So if you're posting once a week, you're nowhere, absolutely nowhere. So your marketing is part of it, is part of how you're going to become front of mind with those clients. And for me, it is, what do we measure? So how many emails do you have to send? How many phone calls do you have to make? How many, like me, I had to knock on doors. And you'll say to me, oh, that's not for me. Then don't sell. And if you don't want to knock on a door, find another creative way to get in front of that person, because they're only going to like you and trust you if they know you. They're not going to like you and trust you from a picture or from an ad. So your KPIs must be listed. I had 7. I handed out brochures in the area twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 750 brochures. 1 lot in Menlo Park, 1 lot in Brooklyn. And I never relented. My sister-in-law, who basically gave me pointers in the beginning on how to do this, said to me, you don't stop. Nobody's going to call you off those brochures in the first year. No one. But you don't stop. You know, when they started calling me in about my second half of my second year and my third year, people would say, we got your brochure in the post box. And what I realized was the fact that they had to take that brochure and throw it in the bin. Ach, daai agent. Ah, here's that agent again, you know. Here's another, every week. I mean, this is relentless. Look at this waste of paper. You know, we should be recycling. Whatever. Somewhere along the line, when the right moment came for them to sell their house, they were looking for that piece of paper. What day is it again that she drops? So I became a front of mind, and that was one thing I didn't. Even when social media started taking off, I kept on with the print because I realized in the farm area I was, and it's individual for every single salesperson, my clients were older. They weren't Facebookers or TikTokers or whatever. They were people who sat at home and still bought the U magazine and the newspaper every day. So I needed print media for one of my things. My database had to be updated every day. Then I had to go and list a house. I decided if I could sell 2 houses a month, I could make the money I needed to pay my bills. So it's a matter of what do you have to do? How many bottles of wine do you have to sell a month? How many labels do you have to sell a month? And that's got to be divided into, if it's in a month, it's got to be divided into the 20 working days. So how much do you need to do to reach that target? Practically then, what you'll do is you will take your target and you'll say to yourself, right, I have to do so much million. Say the boss says to you 10 million. That 10 million you'll divide into your financial 4 quarters. Now, one of the things I want you to remember is it's all fair and well that somebody tells you what to do. If you haven't bought into what they want you to do, it's pointless. Because sales is a hard call. It is probably the most relentless job because it is a continuous chipping away at the no's. And you're going to have to go through 8 no's or 6 no's out of 10 to get those 2 yeses or those 4. I don't know. If your industry is a 6 no's, 4 yeses, you're in a great industry. We used to go through 8 no's, 2 yeses, and then you wouldn't even be guaranteed with those 2 yeses. So you had to roll the numbers. Okay. So for me, it was all about what do you have to do per quarter? What do you have to do per month? And what do you have to do per week? And I even broke it down to per day. Because as a real estate agent, there were times I really didn't feel like it. I'd wake up a morning, and there were many times like that, because when you come out of a cushy environment, when your salary gets paid every month and you suddenly go on commission only, then it's hard, especially when you're putting children through school and you're paying for cricket bats and rugby boots, and you're paying for pizzas. And those 2 boys you saw, they ate a lot. They ate a lot. It wasn't a yogurt or they ate a lot. So for me, the important thing was, what did I have to do? Not what my boss said, to make my life comfortable, to make sure that I had enough at the end of a month. And that's what I put down. So if my requirement was, and they load your targets a little bit. So mine was, I think it was the first year I started 20 million. So that would be 5 million a quarter. That would be 1.7 a month. That's 1 house a month. I had to then work out, you see, because then I went out there and I signed the deals on commission. That's the other thing. When you start dropping commission, you start getting less money. And this is where it affects the money chain, because when you drop the commission, you get less. And what you're basically telling the clients and you're telling the people is, my professional fee is negotiable. After my first year was hard, so my professional fee basically was a little bit negotiable. My second year, my professional fee was not negotiable anymore. And I started to work on clients that I would basically determine that I wanted that business. So I signed mandates. I wanted your business because I needed 3 months to sell your house. Now, in your industry, that's what you've got to decide. If your income that you need for that quarter is 2 million, and you've got to see 10 people and they've got to all sign a deal of X amount, then make sure you put yourself in front of the right people so that you can pen in the amount of money that you're going to earn. So for me, that was very, very important, because that day that I didn't want to get up and that I didn't want to move would cost me that amount of money per day. So I couldn't be off my feet for long, because my motto, and I had a business coach then that worked alongside with me as well, that said to me, Karin, it's work, 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 work. Through the rough times, through the highs, through the lows. When you sign a contract, you're back again the next day. You're back again. The ups and downs, because the market's going to be like that. Trump says something silly. What does the market do? Cyril says something silly. What does the market do? So we've got to always be working, because you can't afford to take that day. And let me correct myself in saying that. You can't afford to take it for nothing. Sometimes when you earn it and deserve it, then you take it. And you do what my partner and I sometimes used to do. We used to go to Santon, go and have a beautiful piece of cake and a cappuccino at Walnut Grove, and we used to go and spoil ourselves. And sometimes if the commission was a bit slow coming in, we'd buy one little thing on the Woolies sale. If it was a good month, we could go into one of those fancy stores in Santon. But always we celebrated our wins. Now's the time to be intentional. When you know that, when you know what you have to make per day to hit target, you now become intentional. Work out the effort that's required. Work out what needs to be done. How many calls, how many emails, how many people added to your database, how many dealerships must you see, how many wine bottle stores must you visit, and work out what the effort is that's required. And if it is 20 bottle stores you have to see, then you pin that into your diary and you make sure that you see 20 bottle stores in the month, because seeing 20 means you might get 10% saying yes. That's 2 saying yes. So you're running numbers. The second thing is work out the financial year and know your market. Know when potentially it's going to be quiet. And in those quiet months, so put in effort into that database. Do your advertising. Go out, sit in coffee shops, speak to people, hand out things, hand out samples. Just keep working. Keep putting in that effort. Keep making sure that you pitch. Because if you don't pitch, they're going to forget you. They really will forget you. The third thing is, what do you need to know? And here's where Devin and I sat down. I said to him, Devin, let's talk about your consultants that are working underneath you. So how do they manage the objections? We talked about that a little bit. And what I realized was product knowledge was poor. Product knowledge was super poor. Because if somebody gives you a hard time on the product, you don't want to try and convince them. Because remember, you're running numbers. So a no, you've got to decide, can I save this? Will this one work? Otherwise, it's next. Spend time with them. And you know what? My business coach said something, and maybe it's a bit crass for this, but he said to me, practice on that clever word, practice on them. Because when you get in front of somebody and you're not going to win this one, okay, then practice your pitch. Practice answering that objection, but not overselling and hardcore. In a professional way, giving them product knowledge, product information, sharing with them information. Because remember, education is key in sales. It's about, do you know your product? A lot of people don't sell because the person asks them a question and they don't know. They don't know how many colors they have of that paint. They don't know how many flavors they have of that juice. They don't know how many preservatives are in some form of cereal. You have to decide what you need to know exactly. And you've got to skill yourself. There, your 10,000 hours becomes important. I had to know which house sold in that street the most recently and for how much. What was the average of that street? How much more did they get for it? What would happen if somebody bought it at that price and then renovated it and overcapitalized? What would happen? Is it an up market? Is it a down market? I had to find out that credit score. I knew eventually that credit score is a saving grace, because you sell the thing to somebody and they don't know about the transfer fees, the attorney costs, and all those other things. And you know what? They can't afford it. So they buy the house, 2 months later, it's on auction. Same with cars. You finance a car for somebody, you push them through, you're going for it. You've sold 3 units this month. Yay! The next thing, they bring the car back. They can't afford the insurance. They can't afford the petrol. They can't afford. That credit score is there for a reason, to save you. Find the clients that can afford you, and find the clients that will pay your professional fee. But if you are not earning your professional fee, don't ask for it, because then you're basically just like all the others, average. And most salespeople are average. There are very few that are prepared to work like this. So what I did was I rolled 90-day cycles, because remember, it's 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. Then you're at the end of your financial year. Man, if you know the first cycle is going to be a quiet one, you've got to have stuff lined up for the second cycle or wherever that's going to be. If the first cycle is a busy cycle, you've got to pack it in and make sure that you get as much as you can. Because remember, ultimately, it's going to come down to, what are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to do? And instead of driving around, or instead of sitting and moaning about how difficult it is and how your market is so affected by the tariffs and affected by this, no. If you know what is being sold, how many cars are being sold, or how many SUVs are being sold in a year in South Africa, and you are only selling 2% of that, who is selling the other 98%? You have a market. It's what you're going to put together to do that. So you need to build momentum. You need to keep it going, 90-day cycles, because when you do that, you're building pipeline. And you've got to keep this going for 3 years, because the first year is going to be rough, very rough. The second year, you're going to find it rough, but it's going to get a little bit better. You're going to start getting to know your product, getting to understand the clients, understanding the needs, understanding the common objectives, understanding the script that you need to have, and also learning about yourself. What pushes your button? When they ask you a question and you feel, oh, I'm so irritated now. You know, if another person asks me that, find out what pushes your button, because that's part of that self-leadership. What kind of person are you? What pushes your button? How can you manage yourself in those situations? How do you deal with those clients? You have to decide what your highest value is. Why are you doing this? I stayed in real estate because I needed to earn that money to put my children through school, through university, and basically put food on the table. And real estate was tough. In the 9 years that I did it, the market went up and down. It was a buyer's market when I started, and it then became a seller's market, and I think I ended on a buyer's market. I don't even know. It wasn't even relevant to me anymore, because what I decided was, number one, I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. Till I went, I love my job. You know why? Because it paid me. I looked at my values. What were my highest values? My highest values were honesty, integrity. My spiritual beliefs were very important to me, and education. Because you see, I dealt with a couple of people who thought they were very clever in real estate, even attorneys who thought, oh, I'm an attorney in litigation, you know, I'll tell this little real estate agent how to do conveyancing. Problem is, in the law, in conveyancing, You have to specialize in that to know what it's all about. And when you're a real estate agent, you've done that training, which means sometimes you don't want to be clever with lawyers. You want to be able to manage that emotional intelligence, but you do actually know more than them. And so I had to look at my highest values and decide, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? And why would I put myself through 8 people who are going to treat me like absolute dirt? Because I knew my value. I knew what I brought. People didn't have to know what my qualifications were and how many things I'd done before the time, and that I was the deputy principal of a school, acting deputy principal of a school, that I'd done my time in management as well. I didn't have to tell them that. I had to tell myself that. You are enough. You are good enough. And with that, I could tell people, no, I don't think I'm your agent, but I'm sure you'll find somebody lovely. Thank you. And then I would leave. And the bottom line is you've got to have this confidence and you've got to look after yourself, because the sales environment can become brutal. And if you don't look after yourself, you'll start doubting yourself. You've got to be accountable to somebody. Now, if you don't have an accountability partner, I had a partner. We both were in the same sort of situation. So we both had to make the income. We accounted to each other. And we basically, when times were tough, we would have to pick each other up and get through there. If you don't have one, get an accountability partner, or make yourself an accountability schedule and put your things down on your laptop, on your interface of your computer, put down your goals, put down your targets, put down everything and assess yourself. Now, Devin eventually started learning that, CRM of his, and you know what? By the time we finished our coaching cycles, he didn't even have to open anything to tell me how many people were seen, how many leads were entered, how many this was done. He could tell me this off by heart. He had become metrics obsessed. And that's what you have to do, metrics obsessed. Because if you know what your KPIs are, they'll have a number attached to them. And if you're running 20 emails and you're not getting the results, then you've got to run 40. And if the market gets tougher, maybe you have to run 60. Maybe you're running the wrong people or the wrong emails to the wrong people. That's part of your education. Feedback. You do need feedback. If you have nobody that you're reporting to, hopefully there is somebody you're reporting to, but you need feedback. You need their opinion, and you need to listen. When they tell you, listen, you're too brash with people. You too, you speak over them. Somebody told me that once. I was very offended. Oh, you can't tell me that. That's what happens. I'm taught. And also, I'd say things more than once. And that is because we had to tell the children in the classroom 100 times to write the date. So I just automatically, when I started selling houses, I'd find myself telling people twice the same thing. So I had to go, somebody said that to me, and I had to physically stop myself in my presentations and take that advice. And you know what it did? It made me sharper. Okay, and yeah, and amen, and what all those words I added in there, I always got feedback on that too. I got feedback on a lot of stuff. Somebody told me I was extremely brash and rude and whatever, but that was one of those people that I told you practice on. And actually, yes, I was maybe, but you know what? I didn't have time to waste. I've got a target, and so if you're going to waste my time trying to be more clever than me, then I have to actually move on and in the nicest possible way, get out of there. So you need to do preparation. You've got to look after yourself, self-care, and you've got to understand your highest value. Why are you doing this? Why sales? I mean, some of you are also commission earners. Some of you probably get a basic salary. And if you're in a really hardcore sales environment, it'll be very low. So it's about making target. It's about getting your team to make target. And all these things that apply to you, your team it has to filter through to your team. Who are they? Why are they there? What are their highest values? What's your relationship with them? How can you help? I love that Doctor in New Amsterdam, that series. How can I help? Hold your system. Get out the daily list. I love time blocking. If you don't time block or you don't know what it is, go and Google it or YouTube it. Go and time block. And then, guys, work. In sales, you don't have the luxury of taking time off, except for your annual leave or when you take dedicated breaks that you've decided this is a time I can take. And those, you put your out of office on your computer and you leave. You give the commission to another agent and you go and rest. You refuel, you get yourself back the strength that you need, and you go back again to work. Thank you very much. I hope that's been helpful. Are there any questions?
Sure, thanks, Karin. Sure, that was a bit, some of that stuff, eh? I think you made us all think today. Anybody like to ask a question before we close off, or just maybe there's something that stood out that you'd like to maybe just come, the mics are open, maybe there's just something that's always encouraging for the people presenting, just to hear those take homes and what you thought
nuggets.
Of it. Yeah, so if you've got anything that really stood out to you, there were quite a few to me, but if there's anything that stood out to you, please, it would be wonderful to hear.
We have to do it like this, Trace. Benilda, what stood out to you? What was your nugget for the session?
Wow, it really made me actually want to do it as in today, because actually like I'm in sales, so this is new. Like I just got in last year late. I'm from finance, so like this training, it really opened my eyes to say that I mustn't relax. I need to work. And when it's quiet, I need to put those seeds. And yeah, thank you so much. It really helped.
Brilliant. And you, Sherwin?
Sorry?
Sherwin?
Sorry.
No, Benilda. And yeah.
Do
you have a nugget?
Yeah, no, everything was great for me. I just had it on my mind now what my nugget was.
No problem.
So
let me ask Henriette, then you can remember. Yeah. Henriette, anything that stood out for you?
Oh, the 160 emails that didn't work, I'll have to send 360 now.
Oh dear.
There we go. There we go.
You're just gonna have to visit China more.
Yeah.
This is the rest of Southeast Asia.
I'll go with you this time.
Yeah, maybe emails don't work. Maybe you've got to see the people. My release. Anything that stood out for you? And then that's the last one. I promise I won't put anybody else on the spot. Alzan, my release is on a call probably.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm from management. So basically, there was a lot of stuff that I really took like a sponge, knowing that I can learn from it. And when I do my sales meeting with my teams every week, I can give some feedback to them. But the one that stood out for me is the practice on the client that is not the difficult client, because you tend to think, okay, this client is not going to take the deal or whatever. So you tend to leave that client. But now, hearing what you say, you need to practice on the client. That makes such good sense to me. So at least you get something out of the client, practicing your strategy, or practicing maybe your pitch, or seeing where you're not doing good. Like you said, you don't know your product. So
Yeah.
that was quite a good one for me.
And that thing that you're scared of saying, when you're not going to get that client anyway, so you might as well say it. And as long as it's not rude, offensive, or illegal, it should be a little learning curve for them. Thank you very much. I appreciate those feedbacks.
Yeah. Thanks, Karin. Really appreciate it. And thanks for attending today and coming through. Our next one's going to be the 20th of August. So Jean will be sending the invite soon. Please, if there's any feedback, any topics that you'd like to hear that we haven't covered and you'd really like to hear as well, please just send us. I'm sure you've got Jean and my email address. And thank you so much. We so appreciate you taking this hour with us. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Benilde, I need to actually connect with you still. Okay, I'm going to close up. Thanks, Karin.
Thanks, darling. Have a lovely... Are you going to end it? Oh.
I have to find it. Here we are.